years upon years, the ecosystem in the Mount Kenya and its forested areas has been sufficiently generating water for use by not just the communities that live by that area, but those flung further away from the slopes of the mountain. Tens of rivers have flown down the valleys, nourishing life for both flora and fauna. One of the more famous rivers is the Sagana River.
Well, in the recent past, however, the volumes of water getting downstream have been reducing with each dry season. Just what happens to the water that leaves the mountain's forest as it ages downwards towards its destination? NTV's Brenda Wanga navigates this famous river and tells us of two different scenarios and why there's a renewed scramble for this river and its troubled waters.
The demarcations are as clear as day and night. It's in the middle of the dry season, yet patches of green indicate flourishing farming activities. This is Upstream Sagana River.
Sasa wakati kiangazi ilikuwa kubwa, sasa tabu ilitokea. Kwa serikali wanakuja wanapika maji yetu.
Further downstream, a different kind of reality has hit hard. Dry taps and even drier farmlands. The same resource that nourishes lives upstream has been denied to users downstream.
Saa ingine inakuwa ni mfurugano tukilia kwa maji, na tena wale kama wazee wa Kogwe hawashoti maji kwa mto sababu iko na shida.
Giving rise to a conflict that pits man against nature and demonstrates the increasingly dire effects of climate change, global warming and human mismanagement of what nature has given to mankind freely. This is the tale of a forest, its rivers and its dependence, and ultimately nature's survival.
We experience conflict that is human conflict and also human-wildlife conflict.
There is need to have sufficient environmental flow.
The lungs of the earth, at least here on the slopes of Mount Kenya, heave, perhaps alive to the weight they carry, a weight of sustaining life for over 2 million people dependent on the precious resource that runs beneath this rich, lush canopy. Several rivers trace their source from this area. The melting of the glaciers atop Mount Kenya begins the process of the formation of the Mount Kenya rivers. During the dry season like now, this, together with the water that is naturally held in the moorlands during the rainy season, forming the underground water reservoirs, is what replenishes the flow in the rivers that eventually snake their way downstream to give life to populations there. From the towering mountain comes rivers Thegu and Sagana, the main tributaries of the larger river Sagana, as well as Burget, Naromoru and Liki rivers which drain into the Wasonyiro. But this is a tale of River Sagana. Here, the waters are pure, untouched by the intense human activity. The tranquility here only disturbed by the almost inaudible sounds of nature. It's in the middle of the dry season and River Sagana still flows, albeit with much lower volumes than usual. And the importance that this river holds in the lives of those people who live along its banks cannot be overemphasized. Deep inside the forest is the first encounter this river has with human activity. Constructed on the side of the river is the first legal water abstraction point. A concrete waterway directs a section of the river into chambers that then move the waters into a fish nursery and farm just a few meters downstream.
We only give authorizations to those abstractions that are in the forest. We give you access, authorization through a water permit. That is for community water projects.
The system of abstraction is controlled with proper checks and balances to ensure that the water levels after abstraction are still sufficient to sustain life both in and out of the water. The water here is almost freezing cold, the perfect conditions to breed and rear trout fish, and the aquatic life here does indeed thrive. From fertilization to hatching and growth to consumable weight, the water runs through the various stages and is released back into the river to continue its journey downstream. The expectation being that the water will find its way all the way down the river to its onward transmission to the mighty Tana River. Over the years, however, that journey has been getting shorter and less intense. Just ask Esther Wanjira Wahome.
Huko mtoni kukakuwa na maji mingi sana. Kwa wakati hii sijui maji ilienda wapi.
She lives just a few kilometers off the river, but she isn't enjoying the use of the resource, at least not now during this dry season when she needs it most.
Wakati hii kuna tabu mingi ya maji. Hata tukipata kitu huko kwa shamba, hatipati kitu. Sasa hakuna kitu hata ya kula, mahindi malisika, hakuna kitu sasa hivi.
The river is her sole source of water for both her domestic and agricultural needs. This year, however, has been the worst so far. The rivers downstream are down to a trickle. Most of the abstraction and supply of water from the rivers into the homesteads is done through naturally appearing pressure due to gravity. The thin flows mean no water can find its way into Esther's taps and onto her farm. It is a situation that she and her neighbors say lasts for about 6 out of the 12 months of the year when the skies are clear and the rain is rare.
Wakati wa mvua hata maji hatutaki. Isipokuwa ni ya kunywa. Ya kunywa tu. Hata hamwezi mkaikia hapa wakati wa mvua. Lakini hii miezi January, February and March, August, September, October kama hii. Hiyo tunaona kama ni miaka 10.
They believe that if allowed to harvest the water during the rainy season and store it, their problems will be solved. But there's just one issue standing between them and the fulfillment of what now remains a pipe dream.
Wakati kiangazi kinakuwa kama hii, tunajaribu sana kwa sababu nafikiri iko wakati tulikuwa tunatafuta dam.
Kama ni mto kama hii, badala ya maji kukubaliwa yote Indian Ocean, alafu wakati wa jua tuje kuelezana, inapaswa itasame njia ya water harvesting. Na mimi ningepropose namna hii. Kwa mto ifugwe kama ni mita 10, kuteremuka mita 200 ifugwe, mita ingine 200 ifugwe, mita ingine 200 ifugwe. Na wakati huo hakuna miti itakuwa inaharibiwa. Na hiyo water itakuwa imehifadhiwa, itatumika na wananchi United.
On the fringes of the forest and upstream on the river, the now rare commodity downstream flows in abundance. Lush green farms are thriving, food is in plenty, and the people here are not complaining.
Mtoni Sagana tunaleta hapa juu. Wakati ya kiangazi tunakuwa tukitumia hiyo maji. Wakati ya mvua sasa maji inarudi mtoni.
Farms like Peter's are many on this side of the slopes. The difference between the areas under irrigation and those not is distinctly visible, and not just by the shade of green, but also the type of buildings and development. The changes began showing some 9 years ago when the farmers here, tired of inactivity during the dry periods of the year, came together to form water cooperatives. In the years that followed the adoption of the irrigated agriculture, the lives of people here have changed. Not only do they enjoy a regular and uninterrupted supply of food both for domestic and commercial use, they have been able to plow their earnings into bettering their living standards.
Tuliweza hata kuleta hata hii sitima. Tukaweza kununua ng'ombe. Sasa hii ng'ombe unaona hapa, hii msichana ndio ananijinunulia mwenyewe. Kwa maana bwana yake alipotea, sijui alienda wapi. Sasa akabaki yeye mwenyewe. Hata ukiona sasa, sasa naona amejenga, amepomoa ile nyumba ya mbele ilikuwa bofu, anajenga kanyumba kasuri kwa maana ametoa mapato kwa hapa.
While life is sprouting here, with every drop of the life-giving liquid to the ground, the same earth remains scorched on the other side of the ridge. The lives of those who live here are still dependent on rain-fed agriculture. The unequal distribution of the water resource of the Sagana River remains a headache for both the residents and the authorities charged with ensuring the forests and the rivers therein are used sustainably.
Kenya Forest Service, we are going to ensure that there is a minimum allowable flow in the rivers emanating from our forest ecosystems, mainly to ensure that our forest health is also maintained.
The Forest Service maintains that it has done its part in ensuring that the ecosystem that supports the formation of rivers is intact despite the vagaries of climate change. The rivers are flowing from the mountain. The extraction of water, on the other hand, lies with the Water Resources Authority.
Communities who have legal intakes are getting water as per the water abstraction permits, and they comply with the water abstraction conditions.
By the beginning of last month, there were over 70 water abstraction points along an approximately 5-kilometer stretch of the river. Most of these points unregulated, making it difficult to quantify just how much water was being taken off the river and how it was being used. Efforts have been made to control the extraction of water from the river. The committee charged with this duty has been encouraging communities to come together and get their water from a common point like this one. Here, the water is diverted into a common point and then metered to allow for better controls and revenue collection. But not all of the other users follow this protocol.
Tungependa hii maji igawe kwa njia ile ambayo itawacha maji kama 30% iendelee na kutiririka na kwenda chini, ndio wale watu wa chini wapate. Lakini wakati mwingine tunaona kwamba maji ni kama inagawa zaidi kidogo.
There are places where the rule of the jungle reigns quite literally. Take this water intake point, for instance.
Where we are standing, you can see that already there are 2 intakes behind me. The intake upstream is connected to a 6-inch pipe, and this is one of the abstractors, and next to it, where we are standing, we have a diversion of the river to a concrete canal, and it's also connected to some pipelines.
Only recently, the national government agencies went on a mission to remove illegal intakes on the river. A few weeks later, many of them have been reconnected and water is flowing once again to the farms, at least upstream. This time round, the Water Users Committee insists for domestic use only.
We also consider the flow of the river. So based on the 3 points, we have come up with a rationing program, and currently we are now giving the water projects only water for domestic use only, and we are supplying them for 4 days in a week.
The reality on the ground, however, is different. The tussle for the use of the water here has left government authorities between a rock and a hard place. The clamor for the building of a dam to store rainwater favored by the public, not so much by the authorities.
Sasa serikali ikitaka hiyo maji ikae kwa mtoni, wajengee watu damu. Serikali kubwa na serikali ya county washikane, watuchimbie damu huko Kabaru ilikuwa imepimwa. Wakichimba damu, watengeneze damu ya miezi 3, wakati ya kiangazi maji yote yatakuwa mtoni. Kwa maana nitakuwa nikilete ya
could allow all the water from many rivers within the forest to be abstracted, and therefore compromise on the biodiversity, that is flora and fauna, in the forest ecosystem. So we are still going to ensure that we adhere to the provisions of the Forest Conservation and Management Act to ensure that our forests also remain healthy, but we also ensure that communities are accessing this water for their domestic use and also for irrigation.
The irony, however, is that there already exists 2 dams within the forest. The dams supply water to the Nyeri County residents. It is the same treatment that those who are not served by the County Water and Sewerage Company want. While the scramble for the Sagana water continues amidst fears of its sustained existence, the river, resilient, continues to flow. In just under a few weeks, the rains will be here, and the river will roar again. But the challenge will remain: what to do when the clouds clear and the dry season is upon the people again. Brenda Wanga, NTV in Nyeri County.